We are here to discuss an issue which is not happy and speaks of a major crisis, a humanitarian crisis in one of the country's biggest institutions, the BITS Pilani Goa campus, an institution that is known to churn out top level engineers and students who've done really well. On the 13th of May, a student in BITS Pilani, Arjun Sabu, was found dead in his apartment, rented apartment just outside the BITS Pilani campus. Sabu had moved there recently from inside the campus. There was a suicide note, and his death has been confirmed as a death by suicide. The death of Arjun Sabu marked the 7th such death in 18 months in BITS Pilani. And these are not ordinary deaths. These deaths have all been classified as suicide deaths. So 7 suicide deaths in 18 months in BITS Pilani campus in Goa. These are hard facts. There is no drama. I'll be clear, I'll stick to facts, and we will look at what needs to be done and what is not being done. What do these figures tell us? They tell us that in BITS Pilani Goa campus, one student has committed suicide in every 10 weeks since 2024. These are the hard facts. 10 deaths, 10 suicides, 7 suicides, 1 in every 10 weeks. This is the real data that is there with us. This is not just alarming and shocking, but it speaks of a serious problem in the campus, which the campus authorities seems to be brushing away and linking it to just stress and tension that happens in every campus of this nature. Now, one student, a friend of Arjun Sabu's, speaking to a local newspaper, says, every time a suicide happens in our campus, they talk of mental health, they talk of academic pressure. But the academic approach of the BITS Pilani Goa campus is not questioned. These are a student's words quoted in a newspaper. We leave it at that. But if this is a student view, then there is a serious doubt on the approach of the institution and the manner that it conducts its academics. This is a student's viewpoint reflected in the newspaper. Then in the assembly in 2025, in the Goa Legislative Assembly, there was confirmation from part of the government that these 5 deaths were suicide deaths. This is what the government said. So let us look at the data of these deaths, and then we'll get to what was said in the assembly and the reactions after that. On the 10th of December 2024, the first suicide death was reported. Then between 2024 and 2025, there was a cluster of 5 deaths. And then on February 2026, February 2nd, the body of a 20-year-old female was found. That took the toll to 6 deaths in 15 months. And then with Arjun Sabu's death on the 13th of May, that went up to 7 in 10 months, which is, as I said, roughly 1 death in every 10 weeks or a little more. However, when the government in the State Assembly confirmed these 5 deaths as suicide deaths, parents of the 5 BITS Pilani students who died in the Sankwal campus in 2025, they fiercely contested the government's claim in the assembly that all of them were suicide deaths. Now that is interesting. What really happened was one of the parents, or the father of one of the victims, Vinod Kumar Jain, the father of the 4th victim in this cluster of 5, he dismissed exam stress, claiming that no tests were going on in August 2020, on August 16th, when his child died. So he said no tests were going on August 16th, when my child died. And he demanded an autopsy and viscera reports immediately amidst suspicions of foul play. Till date, we are not clear of those reports, and we would love to be enlightened. Then, alarmingly, on September 12, 2025, the SP of South Goa, then Tikam Singh Verma, he confirmed that out of those 5 student deaths in BITS in that cluster, the latest case, the last case, the 5th case that we are talking about, and these are his words, is the first case where drugs were detected in the preliminary tests. This is according to newspaper reports quoting Tikam Singh Verma. And the police have, of course, then warned of a strict action against drugs being supplied into the campus. And he also said that the authorities are ramping up efforts to curtail drug distribution. But at least in one case, as per reports, the South Goa SP had stated that drugs were detected in preliminary tests. I'm just quoting reported facts. Now, after the last suicide 2 days ago, this is what the new South Goa collector, the present South Goa collector, Egna Kletus, said.
We have conducted a detailed investigation into the frequent student suicides in the BITS Pilani campus, and we have submitted a report to the government also in the month of February this year. Now, based on the all investigations and committee sittings and meetings, whatever recommendations we have also submitted to BITS Pilani. One of the major findings was that they were not having adequate number of mental health care facility or professionals in their campus. But however, after the repeated intervention from the government side, they have augmented their facility. Now they have adequate number of manpower. Also, they are providing 24/7 mental health care facilities also in the campus, in-house as well as outside. Also, they have reduced the number of examinations by increasing the electives and making certain papers optional. So academic pressure also they are trying to reduce it, and they have submitted compliance report to the government also. However, unfortunately, despite all the efforts, still cases are being reported.
She said that the mental health systems have been strengthened in BITS. 24/7 counselling facilities have been recommended and done. And the district level monitoring committee, which submitted its report to BITS on February 2nd, stated in the report that all these recommendations have been put forward, and BITS is going out of its way to ensure that these recommendations are followed. Some of them have already been followed. Now, this district level monitoring committee, headed by the collector, submitted its report on February 2nd, literally giving a clean sheet of sorts to BITS, saying these are recommendations, they are doing it all. On the very same day, the body of this female student was found dead, and there was a conclusion that she committed suicide. On the day when the last district level monitoring report was submitted by the collector, dated February 2nd, the body of this unfortunate girl was found as well. Again, these are all reported facts in public. Nothing is being conjectured, and these are just facts on public record. So, these are clear as daylight, reported. The collector in her report also said that BITS has strengthened its mental health systems. It has introduced counselling facilities, and it has augmented its number of counsellors. Well, then how did this death happen on February 2nd? Then, interestingly, I'll come to one more point. On the 24th of February this year, the Dean of BITS Pilani Goa also confirmed in a meeting that all these steps were being taken, counselling facilities have been improved, counsellors have been improved, and so on and so forth. But all these claimed efforts didn't seem to be able to protect the life of the latest victim, Arjun Sabu. On 24th, the Dean said, on May 13th, Arjun Sabu dies. Now, if you have counsellors and if you have 24/7 counselling, aren't the counsellors supposed to flag these things? Aren't they supposed to look at vulnerable cases and point out that vulnerability? Aren't they supposed to say, yes, we have found this, let's keep a watch? how did a vulnerable student just slip out of their hands in this kind of a manner? And if the counseling was good, the counseling would have not only flagged it, but would have also flagged that this vulnerable case is leaving the campus and has decided to take up a place separately. And one statement of his flatmate after his death is very interesting. According to a newspaper report quoted, the flatmate said that Arjun Sabu said no, he was not liking the conditions in the campus, and hence he decided to come and live separately. This is again an unnamed, the flatmate has not been named, quoted in one of the leading newspapers today. I'm only quoting from that, but this also needs to be flagged. Now, I'm a little surprised at how the South Goa collector seems to be literally and almost normalizing these things by saying that suicides don't happen just here, they happen in campuses all across the country. It happens in high pressure institutions, especially engineering and medical colleges. Now, one is not saying that she's completely incorrect, but can the suicides all over the country be an excuse or a justification for all these suicides happening in BITS, as if that this is a normal occurrence and this should be seen as something normal and not something that needs to be looked into far more seriously than in the manner that the district collector or even the state government is doing? God forbid, if these things happen to family members of those who are in governance, would they be singing the same tune? One needs to ask. These are hard, cruel questions, but they need to be asked because you need to see the faces of the mothers and the fathers of all these students who've committed suicide and then say the same thing to them. Will the collector, North Goa, sit in front of a parent or parents who have lost their children and normalize this by saying that this happens everywhere? Let's get an answer to this. Yes, indeed, student deaths and suicides in institutions in India are extremely worrying. 13,000 student deaths have been recorded in the National Crime Records Bureau statistics, and places all across in the IITs, in the coaching centers in Kota. All of this has been happening, and BITS Pilani Goa campus has also been red flagged as one of the institutions where this is happening, primarily because of the sheer numbers. Now, what are we calling for? All we are calling for is a deeper inquiry, because negligence by authorities needs to be probed. One is not coming to the conclusion, but we need to probe if negligence has happened by the authorities at the BITS Pilani campus. You cannot get away by saying this is normal and this happens everywhere. You cannot get away by saying suicides are personal. Why should institutions be responsible for these personal decisions of people? Ending a life is just not a normal personal decision. It's not as simple. It's not a personal decision like going for a movie or going for a cricket match. This is not a personal decision. It's a life altering or a life taking decision. And so please don't call them just usual personal decisions. It's an insult to the people who died. And secondly, all the people in the BITS Pilani Goa, faculty, administrators, seniors, wardens, classmates, everybody should be questioned, and there should be a probe whether they have contributed or they have either collectively or individually contributed to conditions that have led to these suicides. There needs to be a probe. One cannot come to a conclusion, but when one cannot give them a clean sheet unless a probe happens. We are only calling for a probe. And it is only a judicial probe. And I'm saying this because when the last death happened, the one before this, the Congress President Amit Patkar had called for a judicial inquiry, and then, of course, nobody would listen to that. Whether it was a political call or not, we do not know, but the time has come that there should be a court-monitored investigation into the manner in which these deaths have happened, and action should be taken based on the findings of the court monitored investigation. This has to be taken up suo motu and taken to its logical conclusion. It is only then, and that we'll be able to know the truth. Let the court monitored investigation look into civil liability and compensation that needs to be given, if they need to be given, if the institution is guilty. Families should potentially pursue compensation claims, writ petitions in high courts, public interest litigations seeking institutional accountability, and we will leave it up to the courts. Let the judiciary look into it and do an independent inquiry on all these issues. And this is extremely important. We also urge the Goa Human Rights Commission to take a suo motu cognizance of this and pursue an independent investigation. Because do understand that we are calling for this not because one assumes that the system is rotten in bits and everybody is guilty. One is asking for this investigation because BITS is a very premier, very reputed institution run by one of the most reputed industrial families of India. And it is unlikely that these kind of situations will happen, or this mess would be happening due to any institutional neglect. That is the common assumption. The investigation should be conducted to ensure that the truth comes out. If the institution is absolutely clean and if extraneous circumstances have led to this, so be it. Let the institution also breathe easy after that. But however, with so many deaths happening, the institution also cannot be given an absolute clean sheet without an investigation. So one is not coming to any conclusions, but one is asking, why is the government of Goa not pursuing this line of judicial investigation, a court-monitored investigation? Let the investigation be done by any reputed agency reporting directly to the court and not to anybody else. Because we do not want to hear excuses saying that these kind of suicides happen everywhere. It's a trend, it's stress-related, it's exam-related. This is trivializing the issue, and let the South Goa collector not be trivial about this. And before we conclude, let us also talk about another interesting thing that the South Goa collector says. She says that this is a suicide contagion. Apparently, when one person commits suicide, others who are vulnerable also get into that zone and are vulnerable to committing suicide. Now, pardon my ignorance completely. One may be completely unaware of this, but this is a theory which just cannot pass muster because of all that I have said in this video. One cannot just make trivial comments like this. Even if there is something like suicide contagion exists in this world, how does the collector of South Goa even assume that that suicide contagion is a possibility? She does not have the authority to say this. She does not have the expertise to say this. Has there been any study? Has there been any investigation? Has there been a proper look into this by experts of mental health who have come to this conclusion? So one would really urge with folded hands to the South Goa collector, please do not make these irresponsible statements unless they are backed by proper facts and data. And let this court-monitored investigation happen. Thank you.